Everyone to Unbiased Rugby. We're going to be chatting this week about the All Black squad ready for the World Cup. Actually got quite a big coup here. I got 2 Cents Rugby to join me today on the video.
I'm not sure how much of a coup that is, but yeah, okay, I'll take that.
So I think, are you looking for
TV? I guess I'll watch it. No, man, I've booked in 3 weeks annual leave from my job, so apart from the kind of condition with my wife that I have to have dinner ready because she's going to be doing all the drop-off duties and whatnot for the kids,
okay.
I'm pretty much going to
Actually quite nice.
As long as you don't have to go to work or school, then it's fine.
Yeah, but there's the Rugby World Cup. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, priorities, right?
So what I was thinking was we'll just go through I've got a presentation down here. I've put the squad together. I've been trying to do for most of the teams, try to get all the players there. So when I do my videos in the future, then I've got the players already there. We'll just go through. I'll share the screen, and then we can just go through possible omissions, where you think there could be a few issues.
Sure.
And we'll just take it from there. Just have a discussion about it.
Cool. Sounds good, Don.
Great. So I'm going to bring up the first video, the first page. Obviously, we've got the props. What are your thoughts on Angus Tava, Nepo Lala, Joe Moody, Atamoli, and Ofa Tungafasi?
Yeah, the props. I think the biggest talking point was probably more about the man that's not there than about the guys who actually made it. But I mean, it's a pretty versatile looking lot because Moli and Tuangafasi can kind of play both sides. Moody's more of a specialist, loose head. Lalala does the tight head, and Angus can do. He can do both, but I think in Super Rugby when he played loose head, he didn't look the best. So I think they've probably taken that into consideration. It's interesting that you've got that stat there: caps 97, average 19.4. That does seem a bit on the light side.
It is.
Two of the guys in single digits, none of them at 50. If there's any concern, it's that, but it seems like Steve Hansen seems to be going with what are they going to bring around the park more than just scrummaging.
Yeah, I was watching, I think it was the breakdown was on yesterday, and they were talking about that they're probably looking, because normally your props are your pillar defense around the rucks, and they're probably looking at something a little bit different. And I was looking at those, the half kicks, the kicks that don't go too deep and just the chip over into the empty space. So they must be using the props maybe for line speed.
Yeah, that must be it because, Owen Franks has always been the scrummager, and that's been pretty much the core of his game. So for them to not want him there has to be other factors they're looking at. Yeah. But I'm still happy. I'm still pretty happy with those guys. I can't imagine these guys are going to get bullied around too much. Tuangafasi played for the Blues. I did see him get put under the pump a wee bit, but he's probably going to come from the bench. So hopefully not.
Yeah, look, I've really liked Angus Tava's form this year at Super Rugby. I think he's come from almost nowhere. I think he's quite a smart rugby player. He really understands the game quite well. Joe Moody's Joe Moody. It's what you're going to get.
True.
I was a bit concerned without seeing Owen Franks, just because I know that from watching Premiership and watching the Northern Hemisphere sides, they love scrumming, and for them it's just there to produce penalties.
That's right. And Moody has been put under a wee bit of pressure at scrum time, both in Super Rugby and for the ABs. So how he goes will be an interesting one to watch. But like I said, with the other guys, Moli and Tuangafasi, I guess if he's not up to shape, then they can put him as that extra man.
No, exactly. Yeah, so I think look, even though it's a bit light, I still think it's a seriously good set of props. Yeah, we'll move on to the hookers or number twos. We've got Dane Coles, Cody Taylor, and then Liam Coltman.
I think that's probably a wee bit more reassuring if you're an All Blacks fan than the props. And that, Dane Coles, even though he's at 64 caps, given how long he's been out with the concussion thing, he could be a lot higher, and he's about as experienced and as much of a veteran as it comes.
Exactly.
And Taylor, when Coles wasn't there, filled in pretty well. Coltman, I think, is going to be the third guy. 5 caps, it says there. Yeah, that's about right. He'll probably only play in the minnows games, but yeah, I don't think you can have too many issues with those two guys. Coles is dynamic. He's always out there on the bloody wing trying to score tries and whatnot. So, yeah. As long as he keeps his aggression in check, that's the one thing that he's prone to a bit of niggle. And at a World Cup, that's you don't want to be with any less than 15 guys on the field. So that's one area that he just needs to watch himself.
Yeah, I fully agree there. I've always thought that Cody Taylor was, for me, probably the best number 2 in the world from just core skills. And then Dane Coles is just he's something special, but he's a better rugby player.
Yeah. Coltman's probably the best one at the breakdown. So if we want to do our own version of Malcolm Marx, he's probably our best guy there. But still, I think he'll be the third guy. But still pretty happy with that.
Italy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm just looking here. I think Christian was saying that probably be for the first game, and Cody Taylor will start. That probably makes sense.
Yeah, it could well be. It's going to be an interesting one to see who does get the number 1 spot, because I legit think it's kind of 50-50 between those two guys. And Coles has shown when he has come off the bench, he can be that kind of impact player. So there's no reason why he shouldn't.
No, I agree. And if you can't keep his aggression in check, then at least it's only 10 minutes near the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
There we go. Go across to the locks. I think I've got a lot to say here, but I'll leave it to you. But I've got Scott Barrett, Brodie Retallick, Patrick Tuipulotu, and Samuel Whitelock.
Yeah. I mean, in Brodie Retallick and Sam Whitelock, you've got one of the best locking duos in world rugby.
If not the best, yeah. Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. So on paper, that looks fantastic. Plus, I mean, Scott Barrett, the fact that he's also top class, can come off from the bench. He can play on the blindside flank if needed. That's very nice. But Brodie Retallick's not going to be playing for at least, I think they said, the pool games.
Yeah, none of the pool games.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, a few sides are doing it, taking the injured guy who is that guy who's worth taking a gamble on, like the Aussies doing it with Pocock. We haven't seen him play rugby in a long time, still makes the Rugby World Cup squad. The Irish are doing it with Joey Carberry. So the All Blacks are doing it with Brodie Retallick. He's world class. You got to take him, even if he's only going to be at the back end of the tournament. But it's a wee bit of a gamble. What kind of condition is he going to be in when he does get back? Nobody knows, so it's definitely a gamble. Patrick Tuipulotu, I mean, I'm a Blues fan. He plays for my team. He's great when he doesn't drop the ball, but his hands sometimes can be a bit of a killer.
Yeah, well, looking at that, I think the Brodie Retallick injury came at really the wrong time. For me, he is probably the best forward in the world, or in at least the top 5. And so he has to be there at some point. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's good to take a risk on him. But he's not going to be there for the pool games. I think the South African game is probably the most important game. I've got a feeling they'll probably start Barrett and Whitelock for that game.
I would say so, yeah. That makes sense. I mean, Tuipulotu can add some impact from the bench. He's a big ball carrier. But yeah, maybe sometimes having the black jersey on seems to just up that guy's skill level. So maybe he's going to be one of those ones where, in a situation where he would knock the ball on for the Blues, that he'll just keep it in his mitts for the All Blacks. Let's hope so.
Yeah, I really do. I think for the South African game, I think it's Eben. I'm sure Eben and Mostert will start. So it's pretty similar to the Sam Whitelock and a Scott Barrett, and then Arthur Snyman to come on straight after that. Yeah.
That's a tasty lineup, man, because those South African locks are among the best in the world. So that's one thing to look forward to.
I've always said I think that's the key game for both sides.
Yeah, it's gonna decide the way the whole pool plays out.
Yeah, we'll go through to the back row. We've got Sam Cane, Luke Jacobson, Kieran Reid, Artie Sevilla, and Matt Todd.
Yeah. I'm pretty happy that Matt Todd made it, because especially when Liam Squire was rumoured to be now available, you thought maybe he would make it, and then the guy to be cut would be Matt Todd, because he's just, you can see there's All Blacks career 20 games, but the guy's been around. He was playing behind Richie McCaw for such a long time at the Crusaders and at the ABs, so I'm glad he's made it. I think that guy deserves a World Cup. Is he going to be starting? I wouldn't have thought so. Kieran Reid's going to play. I think Sam Cane's going to play, and I think Artie Savia is going to play. I think that's going to be the way they line up. What they do with Jacobson and Todd will be one to watch. But I mean, Jacobson's versatile; he can cover multiple positions. And with Savia starting, if you take Cane off at 7, you can bring Todd on, or if you have Jacobson on the bench, you can move Savia to 7. So again, it seems like they're going for a bit of that versatility, but maybe a little bit concerning. We no longer have that kind of Jerry Collins, Jerome Kaino, that kind of player.
There's a real blindside number 6. Yeah, but a lot of teams are going with quite a few 7s. If I look at England, are doing the same with Curry and Underhill, Pocock and Hooper.
Hooper, yeah.
So a lot of teams are going with that and not going with that really big ball carrying like Squire kind of mold.
Yeah, that's right. It seems to be just the way that the coaches are picking it, and I guess we'll see if it pays off.
I'm sure. Look, at the end of the day, I still think Sam Cane, Artie Sevilla, Kieran Reid are probably going to be the starting. I agree with Christian Catley there, 100%.
Yeah,
I think that's your first choice. Matt Todd's great off the bench.
Yeah, and Jacobson with 1 cap. I mean, Steve Hansen's been talking him up as a big player for the future, which is cool. But is he going to start a World Cup playoff game? That's a question. I mean, he's been there with the under-20s, but it's another thing to take it up that next level.
I think we'll see I don't know if he's going to be selected against Tonga this weekend, or if how it plays in the pool games, and then we'll obviously have a better gauge of where he's going to be placed.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably going to be some interesting selections for that Tonga game, because that should give us a pretty good indication on how the management are looking for the World Cup.
Yeah, I heard maybe a rumor they might now put their strongest fit side, so we'll see. Yeah, we'll go through to the halfbacks. Obviously, I think TJ Perenara and Aaron Smith are pretty much a given. I've loved Brad Weber's form this year. And then I need 2 first fives with Bowden Barrett and Richie Mo'unga. Yeah.
I mean, TJ, like you say, and Aaron Smith, it's about as guaranteed as it gets that it's going to be the starter and the finisher, probably with Aaron Smith starting, because TJ, with his physicality, seems to add a bit something extra from the bench. But then likewise, Brad Weber, but he does seem the odd man out there, especially when you've got the caps up like you do, 58 caps, 86 caps, 2 caps. You know, I mean, he's about the same age as those other guys as well, and he's got only the 2 caps, which is pretty hard on him for as good a player he is. He can still definitely do a job, but he still seems like the odd man out there. Bodie and Richie is going to be an interesting one as to whether they persist with the Richie at 10, Bodie at 15, or do they play Bodie at 10 and do they put Richie on the bench? That one seems like they're leaning towards both of them playing at the same time.
Yeah, I do another show on Mondays, and we were discussing this exact thing, and they actually wanted me to ask you about the 10-15 split. I have a feeling that I think Bowden's going to start at 10, especially at the knockouts, and then 20-30 minutes to go, I think Richie Mo'unga will come in at 10, and then and Bowden will move back to 15. Right. I just think when the game's open, I think Richie's a much better player when that game's open and it's a little bit freer. But when it's like, those first 50 minutes when it's quite intense and I think Bowden's much better at that position. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a really hard one to gauge, because Steve Hansen has been talking for such a long time about how everything they're doing right now is in preparation for the World Cup. But it's almost like a game of poker, and I'm not sure if he's telling the truth or whether he's he's bluffing or what. This could just be some elaborate ploy to get everyone to think that that's what they're going to do. It seems like nobody really wants to show their cards too early. Like if you're looking at Ireland, you're concerned that they peaked too early. So I'm inclined to believe he's going to go with Mong at 10 and Barrett at 15. But, I mean, he could just be the ultimate poker player and have me totally fooled.
Look, my only concern is it's the same with South Africa and quite a few of the other nations. Obviously, they're only taking first two fly halves or first fives, because that ends up being that Bonan Barrett and Richie Mo'unga will be playing every single game in the World Cup, especially against like Namibia, Italy. You can really have an opportunity to rest if you brought what's his name, Ioane? No?
Yeah, Josh Ioane.
Yeah.
Well, Steve has said that he considers Geordie Barrett to be another option to cover 10. But again, if I'm playing poker with that guy, do I buy that? I mean, I think he said he's played 10 at, was it high school or maybe club rugby? I'm not sure, but I sure haven't seen. I've seen him play 15, 14, 13, but I haven't seen him play 10.
No, neither have I. I think there was also mentioned that Ryan Crotty's also played 10, but
you're right. That. You're right. He mentioned the same thing with Ryan Crotty. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to play poker with Steve.
No, I just try. I think it'd be nice to actually. I'm sure they'll put the right player up against the right opposition. I just think against a Andre Pollard, I'd rather have Bonan Barrett at 10. Against maybe an Owen Farrell, maybe also a Bonan Barrett. But maybe a different kind of fly half, like who's the other fly? Finn Russell. Those ones, maybe a Richie Mo'unga might do a little bit better.
True. Yeah. So but you're right with the fact that it's game in, game out with the intensity of the World Cup. It would seem too much for both of the guys to play that many games. They'll have to rotate at some point.
Okay. Well, I honestly feel Aaron Smith, TJ Perenara, I think they're almost interchangeable. Depending on what kind of game plan you want. I prefer Perenara coming off the bench because I think he just brings something special at that last 20, 30 minutes. Just that like a bit more aggressiveness, physicality when everyone's a little bit tired.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
Yeah, we'll go across to the centres. I think this was another one where there was a bit of an omission. So we got Ryan Crotty, Jack Goodhue, Antonella Brown, and Sonny Bill Williams.
Yep. I think the interesting point here, and if you've listened to the likes of Joe Schmidt talking to Ireland and Warren Gatland with Wales, they've kind of really emphasized that durability, that reliability, like physically, that you need at the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
And you look at Ryan Crotty and Sonny Bill Williams, and their injury records are pretty bad. So I think that's another pretty big roll of the dice from Steve Hansen. And I've mentioned it in my video as well, that he always seems to talk about Sonny Bill adding as much value around the team as he does on the field. So they want him there no matter what. And it was never in doubt that he wasn't going to go.
Okay.
So what it is he does, I mean, it's hard to really put your finger on it, I guess, unless you're there. But just that he's a great motivator and keeps everyone, positive, and they just love having him around. So that, and the fact that he is that kind of guy who could put that offload and, set up a try that puts you through to a semi-final or something like that. So, but yeah, in New Zealand, people are pretty much torn on Sonny Bill. He's very much a love him or hate him kind of guy.
Damon Derlinde, yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, Crotty's Mr. Reliable, apart from his body holding up, which is not his fault, but that's just the way it is. And I think Goodhue and ALB were pretty much shoo-ins. So, yeah, if Sonny Bill and Ryan can stay fit, then that's fine. But that's a big question.
Yeah, look, for me, I still think Ryan Crotty is probably the best 12 currently playing in the world. If his body keeps up with him, I just think he understands space. He plays such good heads-up rugby. He understands defensive patterns. I just think he's for those really big games at the end, like the semi-final, finals. I think you've got to have somebody like that on the field. I just think he's just too good.
Yeah.
Jack Goodhue, I like him. I think he might do better maybe against an England with a Tuilagi at 13. I think you need somebody quite big in that channel.
True.
ALB is just. I think he's absolutely incredible off the bench. That's my opinion. I just think he brings something special off the bench.
Yeah, Goodhue's the only one who's really played 13 most weeks in and out. I mean, Crotty can cover 13, so can ALB, but he's probably, if you were going to say, a specialist in that position. The other guys are kind of 12s who can play 13, whereas Goodhue's 13. So if there's one thing going in his favor, I suppose it's that. But yeah, again, I can't complain too much with that midfield.
Yeah, we'll go through to, I think, the last one, which is the outside backs. I couldn't find a decent picture of Geordie Barrett.
Barrett.
I had to find one there. But we got Geordie Barrett, George Bridge, Rico Ioane, Siva Reese, and Ben Smith.
Again, it's another one where you look at those number of caps, and it's relatively low. I mean, Rico Ioane being second with 26 caps, it feels like he's been around longer than that. But yeah, okay, 26. Reese and Bridge are very much like fresh new players. I mean, sure, they're both great players for the Crusaders, and they've had some good games for the All Blacks. That last game, Bledisloe too, they both played really well. So they put their hands up at the right time. Geordie Barrett, kind of like Sonny Bill, is a divisive figure here in New Zealand that a lot of people say that he kind of is just riding on the coattails of his surname, getting him in the side, and that he maybe is a guy who could have been in the All Blacks but still needed more time to mature, and they kind of rushed him. And anytime that guy makes a mistake, like you said with Damien Delende in South Africa, people crucify that guy. So he's going to have a fair bit of pressure on him. And then Ben Smith, up until the last couple of months, you would have said he is just the ultimate player because he's so reliable. He doesn't seem to slow down with age. His positioning's great. But then he's been quiet, kind of right at the wrong time. There were even talks about whether he would make the squad, but he still made it, I guess, based more on reputation. But again, he plays 15, he plays 14, he's played 13 in the past, so can't not take him. And Rico Ioane, to be fair, has been in a bit of a slump himself. So yeah, it's not as perhaps as convincing as we might have seen from some All Blacks teams in the past, but a lot of potential.
No, look, I've really liked Siva Reese. Maybe he does some strange things off the field, but on the field, that aggression comes in handy. Rico Ioane is he's off the boil at the moment. He really is. I'm sure he can play himself into form because he is. If you had asked me 6 months ago who the best winger in the world was, it was Rico Ioane. There was no doubt about it. Yeah. But Siva Reese and George Bridge seem to be the informed players at the moment. That's right. I think they're top try scorers in Super Rugby. Ben Smith, you're absolutely right. He has been off the boil for quite a while, but I still think he's the best 15 in the world by a long shot, and I hope they play him in position.
Yeah, he's the best 15 who hardly ever gets to play at 15 anymore. He's kind of a victim of his own versatility that they end up shoving him out on that right wing. I mean, he's a good right winger as well. Sometimes he really impresses, but he's always that touch better at 15.
I think so. I just think it much better with space and things like that. Because I think the big plan with losing Damien McKenzie so early in the year, he would have been the fifth, or well, not the starting 15, but he would have brought that second playmaker kind of thing. And I just think Ben Smith has to be there on the field and hopefully in his best position.
Yeah, I kind of wonder whether he gets to play 15 or not. But I guess if they do rotate Richie and Bodie, it makes sense to have him and Geordie playing kind of alternatively at 15 as well. But yeah, you're right. It's an interesting point as to, do you play the guys who are in form in Bridge and Reese on the wings, or do you go with reputation? So that's I guess one time it's good not to be the coach because you don't have to make those hard decisions.
That's correct. That's correct. But yeah, look, overall, I think it's a cracking squad. The two omissions that they might still end up on the plane depending on injuries and things like that is obviously Owen Franks and Lamapi. I just think I feel very unlucky for them that they didn't make it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Franks is just that experienced guy. He's just been a force in New Zealand rugby for such a long time. The idea of dropping him is almost inconceivable, but it's happened. So, yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, I've been running through the stats and whatnot during Super Rugby, and he's not been that impressive, and his scrum hasn't been as dominant. So,
okay,
that's kind of fair. Laumapi, I really feel for that guy because, when the All Blacks coaching staff coach the players, they give them areas to work on. And for him, it was, without doubt, his distribution needed to improve. And he did it. And he still doesn't make the squad. So I really feel sorry for that guy. But again, if he was a 13 instead of a 12, maybe he'd be going, we just got too many 12s.
I agree, but look, let's see. With Ryan Crotty and Sonny Bill so injury prone, you just never know.
He should definitely be staying fit and ready to go because you're right.
I think he might get that call up.
At the drop of a hat, he could get a call up. Yeah, that's true.
I actually had one more slide. This one I actually forgot to actually put it up. It's just like a bit of a breakdown of the. It's actually not bad. That it's pretty good experience across the park. And I just know somebody was asking about the caps.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of those caps are Sam Whitelock.
Yeah.
Kieran Reid. Those guys are 100+ caps each. So if you take them out of the equation, that's not looking quite as good. Ben Smith, with like an 80 odd. So yeah, it's on the light side. But again, if they're going for guys in form, or if they're going for guys that may be a bit more mobile, a bit more youthful, then maybe that's the strategy. I fully agree. I think. Well, I just think it's a competitive side. I'm sure they're going to do really well. But let's now we've spoken about the squad. Let's we've got a few more minutes. But what do you think? Who do you think the big contenders are for this Rugby World Cup? Well, I think New Zealand's always going to be there. That's just the way it is. We kind of had that stigma about being a World Cup choking side up until we finally won in 2011. And even then, we didn't exactly blow the French off the park in that final. So we snuck through that final. 2015 is the first time you really saw the All Blacks at a World Cup just kind of, play like we know they play between World Cups at a World Cup. Yeah, dominant. So you got to hope that this squad is of that same mindset. They're not going to choke. They don't have that kind of burden of history that there's so much pressure on them to get it done, because the last two sides have got it done as well. And Steve Hansen's been making a big deal about that as well for other sides who perhaps would ordinarily go into a World Cup as a team that might make the semifinals or might make the quarterfinals, who are now actually looking to win the World Cup. He's saying, you're probably thinking Ireland, Wales, like sides that are really as strong as they've ever been. Steve Hansen's putting a fair bit of that pressure on them to say, can you live with that pressure being like an expected contender? So I guess a bit of the mind games going on. But I mean, aside from New Zealand, South Africa, obviously they have had a massive turnaround under Rassie. How that pool game goes between the Box and the All Blacks is going to be an interesting one, because in all likelihood, there's going to be a matchup with Ireland waiting, which is going to be huge. Ireland is another contender. They've been a wee bit off the boil, but I mean, if I again talk about how much do you believe of what the coaches are saying, Joe Schmidt is saying, look, when they got beaten by England the other day, I'm not trying to peak now. I'm trying to peak come World Cup time's off. He's right. He's got a squad to do a pretty good job. I mean, those guys didn't become bad players overnight. And Wales have been very consistent under Gatland. You can tell since 2015, he's just been building for this very purpose of this World Cup, and the depth that he's got there is pretty immense. So those sides for sure. England, you can't forget about England, because again, if you're talking about peaking at the right time, they had a slump, and in the Six Nations before this year's one, 2018 Six Nations, and then they seem to have bounced back pretty well. They could be peaking just at the right time. So I think those are probably, if you're going to have a big five, that's probably them. But then Australia, France, Argentina, those guys just seem to get better at Rugby World Cups. That's just I think I saw a stat the other day. Yeah, that's right. France, I think they said, have never failed to make it out of their pool, and there's a few big name teams that can't claim that. They've gone out in the pools before. England went out in the pool their own tournament last time. I think Ireland's gone out in the pools before. So France always managed to get through their pool, and they're in a tough pool. Argentina have made more semifinals than a lot of other teams as well. So yeah, I mean, the other teams I actually wrote down. I mean, Scotland, Japan, and Fiji, those are the kind of teams that you're probably looking at. They could make it this far, but nobody's really saying they could win it. But
they could
once you get out of your pool, you've only got to win 3 games. So
yeah, it's just 3 games against Tier 1 nations. So it starts to get tough. It's the highest level of rugby because I was looking at England, France. Argentina, because for England to win, they've got to beat Argentina, France, New Zealand, Ireland. So it's literally 5 Tier 1 nations in a row. It's a pretty hard road for them to do it, and if they win, then hats off to them.
Yeah, the 10-14 actually did a bit of analysis over here on their new gig over at Spark Sport, and they said that England have pretty much got the hardest road. If anyone's going to do it, theirs is the most difficult path.
Yeah, I think Joe was saying Group C of death, England have to play Argentina, France, then Wales. So that's that's a hard road.
Yeah, I think those guys in their analysis, 10-14 guys, said that basically teams who have won it in the past have generally had that one tough team in their pool, because there's usually 2 big teams in the pool, and you get that team early, and then you kind of get a break to lead up until your tough playoff games. And that's kind of what South Africa and New Zealand have got in this one. They play each other first, and then they've got a relatively easier path through. So, I mean, sure, one of them has to play Ireland, but in terms of their pool, it's been relatively kind.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Well, I'm not going to keep you much longer, but just the last couple of minutes, just if you just tell people what you're going to be doing for the Rugby World Cup, and just so that they can tune into your channel and how they can get hold of you, things like that.
Sure. So, like I said earlier, I will be taking some time off from my day job to cover as much of the rugby as I can. I'm going to try and, because I'm in my lounge at the moment, I'm going to try and move my my whiteboard, which I always have with me, into this room, because it's currently next to my daughter's cot, which is not ideal when games are on in the middle of the night. So I'm going to set up a little posse here. I'll be doing some live streaming during the games, as long as Spark, who's the company, the broadcaster here, who's doing it all online, as long as they get their act together, then I can watch the games. And I'll be doing some live streaming, doing game previews, reviews, all that kind of good stuff. And it should just be a good bit of fun.
So you're going to actually try to watch all the games?
That's the plan. Ask me again in a month, and then we'll see how I'm going with that.
Yeah, I think it's 19 days to go, and I think we're all 18 or 19 days to go. So very, very close. Yeah,
I mean, how much insight I'm going to be able to give on a match like Canada, Namibia? There's 2 teams I've seen very little of. Georgia, Uruguay. I'm going to be learning along the way as well.
No, I agree with you 100%. Some of the teams, I just watch it for the enjoyment of watching it, because I have no idea who's playing.
And it's the one great thing about the World Cup is you actually get to see these teams that you never usually get to see play. And it's one of the problems that World Rugby has, is that there's kind of this little elite group that like to play each other so often, but those other teams only really get to pop up once every 4 years. So, something obviously we'd like to see change, and it's good to see them, even if it is fleeting.
I think the 10-14 brought that up, that I think Tier 1 nations play 12 to 13 games a year, and then Tier 2 nations, maybe that every 2 years. So there's a big disparity between the two.
Even within those Tier 1 nations, there's still a little bit of, I guess, internal rankings and whatnot. Like, we've had France tour New Zealand, I think 3 times in the last 15 years, but Scotland hasn't come once.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even
I
up
don't
there,
know.
they've got.
Yeah, we go tour there. We do all the nations, but like that 3-game tour, like they always have one team go to South Africa, one go to New Zealand, one go to Australia. We haven't had Scotland in as long as I can remember. So that's not right. We should. Why do we have France 3 times and no Scotland? It doesn't make sense.
No, it's probably it must be about revenue.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Mark, for joining me on today's show. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
It's been a pleasure, Don, to finally get a chance to talk to you after all this time.
Yeah, people must know I've been following Mark since almost the beginning. We started our channel fairly close to each other. I think it's about 2-3 weeks apart. Don't look at the numbers. That's a big difference. But I think yours was the second channel I subscribed to.
Right. Yeah. No, I remember you recommended me as a channel very early on, and I appreciated that shout out.
No, not a problem. Thanks a lot for joining me today. And everyone, if you really like the show, please subscribe to the channel. You know, it's going to get a lot bigger, especially coming up to the World Cup. And we've still got a few more teams to discuss in the next couple of weeks. Listen, guys, chat soon. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.